Stress. Stress is basically your body's way of interpreting what is going on in the environment, whether it's positive or negative stimuli. And stress is beyond just, oh, I'm having a hard time in my relationship. It's any external thing that's influencing your biology that can hence influence your psychology, depending on what that stress is. For example, stress can come in the form of, for example, a deprivation of oxygen. Stress can come in the form of a deprivation of sleep. Stress can come in the form of, financial stress. It can come in the form of, temperature. It can come in the form of social interactions. It can come in the form of an array of emotions triggered by certain things going on in that environment. Stress can be physical stress on your body, like, for example, high intensity exercise over a long duration period of time, depending on your fitness or your ability to produce energy. You call that a VO2 max. So stress can come in different forms as we know it. And stress affects our body in a myriad of ways. Stress can alter our psychology in the way we think and perceive the world. It can lead to atrophy of various biological structures, or at a cellular level. Stress can cause us to lose weight. It can cause us to have an influx of these stress related hormones, such as cortisol, such as epinephrine, aka adrenaline, orexin, a lot of these other biochemicals that run through our bloodstream and run through our nervous system. So it definitely stress affects our body in a high level of way. So the science of stress. So think of stress in the way that, for example, suppose I'm exercising very hard. I'm going for a hard cardio run, or I'm lifting weights, especially if it's not something that I'm used to or have the musculoskeletal capacity to carry out that activity, because my muscles aren't used to that. That will induce a level of stress on the body. And what that stress does is, your brain interprets that stress and that stress in your body, because in our peripheral nervous system, we have all of these sensors for pain, for temperature, and for a myriad of other things that our body has to perceive, because our body and our brain is all about survival, familiarity, and thriving. So our brain will interpret that stimulus, and then be able to send that message out to the muscles, of course, on a cellular level, to be able to say, hey, like, either retract this action, reduce this physical activity, or, we need to break down these muscles, or we need to produce more energy. And a good supply of energy, when it comes to, physical activity, is glycogen, which is basically a complex carbohydrate stemming from glucose, that has been, put together and stored in our muscle cells. And then there is this particular pathway, particularly we'll refer to the adrenaline pathway. And adrenaline is primarily produced in the glands above our kidneys, called the adrenal glands. And so from the adrenal cortex, of course, given the signal from our brain, particularly our pituitary gland in our brain, which is in the middle regions of our brain, then that adrenaline will be sent immediately throughout our bloodstream. So our bloodstream would be, so when you get adrenaline, it's not just particularly the influx of, say, adrenaline or epinephrine in this particular situation, but it's also what that adrenaline does. Everything and when it comes to biology is about structures and binding. So that adrenaline would bind to particular receptors on the surface of particular cells, particularly in this case, we're talking about the cells of our muscles. And then it would, create all of these pipeline effects of, combining to G proteins and cyclic AMP proteins, and making these protein kinases, and all these different things. But all of that whole pathway basically leads to the breakdown of glycogen. And then we have a more influx of that storage that is now being utilized and flowing, that glycogen into that glucose that's now flowing in the body. Then all of our muscle cells can utilize that in the process called glycolysis, or the oxidation process. But we basically use now that broken down fuel for energy to produce more ATP, and that allows us to carry more action. So that's why when you're going into a public speaking, or you're giving a speech, or you're just going into any moment you're nervous, it's good to jump around and do some high intensity exercises. And like I know before shows or events I did, I'll be doing push ups, or I'll be using resistance bands, or I'll be jumping up and down, or I'll be running in place. Everything to get my adrenaline up. Not definitely because of the blood flow, but also because of the adrenaline pathway in terms of all that glycogen being not broke down, and all of this has been broken down through scientific research. So stress is of course stress. Most people can relate that to anxiety, a psychiatric disorder. But anxiety, of course, you have general and chronic anxiety. But stress generally is important for our body because the reason we have a nervous system, or have evolved a nervous system at least, is so that we can sense our environments and sense threats in our environments, so that we can live optimal lives. Because if we don't have um, not only to be able to sense the world around us, but we don't have stress, we will be ill prepared for all the negative and harmful things that can come into this world. Stress is needed. Like, you need things, and also stress also induces growth factors in our body. You can see that with the brain, and you can also see that with muscles. So some common stresses that we do have in modern life would come in not nowadays. People are worried about their sexuality, we're worried about our gender, we're worried about immigration things going on, we're worried about political stress, stress in relationships, stress with finances and careers, strength with like finding purpose and direction and meaning for our life, stress with like a place to stay. Basically, a lot of the common needs on the hierarchy of needs pyramids. All of these things are prominent amongst most people when it comes to stress in modern day life. So how can you identify what's stressing you out? Well, this comes through periods of either feedback or periods of reflection. So speak to a professional, or speak to someone who's knowledgeable about how they can identify things for you. Because also, or even just friends or family, because outside perspective is important. Like, for example, you could be so caught into this wheel that from an outside perspective, someone would be like, hey, you need to like slow down. You're doing this, you should do this. And you're like, damn, I didn't really notice that. I would just been so caught up into this loop, into this cycle, into this flow. So that's also important. What's also important to remember is that another way to identify, like I said, is through reflection. So that reflection can come in the form of like you just taking your foot off the pedal and just stop and just slow down. Just spend time where you're just breathing, where you just have time to think, have time where you're just still and like really reflecting, like, hey, like, let me, like, for example, even with a headache, because headache is a form of a stress, because a lot of stress is also inflammation. So you're like, was it like, didn't I drink enough water today, or was it the fact that I didn't eat enough today, or was it the fact that I didn't sleep enough, or was it the fact that I've just been stressed about making enough money so that I can pay rent or for other expenses, like, or was it the argument I had this morning? Or was it the scary movies or the loud, provocative music I listened to all last night? Like, you got to find and kind of be a scientist for yourself to be able to figure out, like, hey, like, this particular thing is causing me to be stressed. And the brain and body are obviously interconnected. It's what makes us the whole organism that we are. So whatever is bad for the body is bad for the brain, bad for the brain, bad for the body. So we have to see that everything is interconnected, and also science can be complex. So like it may be a myriad of things put together that's causing it. So you have to go through the process of elimination, find out, hey, like this is causing this, that is causing that. So I need to work on, eliminating those things, and then see how what comes on the other side of that. So some effective short-term stress management techniques, I would say, will always be taking a deep breath. Deep breath does so many things, like it. You have the vagus nerve that run from your brain all through your gut. So taking that deep breath literally puts your body from that sympathetic state to a parasympathetic state, meaning that your body is now releasing all of these calming chemicals like GABA, gamma butyric acid. That's what that is. Releasing serotonin, more and more amounts in the body, endorphins, oxytocin, depending on the context of that situation. and also allow more blood flow, allow more intake of oxygen, also allow your time, your body in terms of your attention mechanism, say in your prefrontal cortex of your brain, and also aspects of your limbic system to be able to say, to like have that attention shifted to just being in the present moment and just relaxing. Because present moment it's not just about reflection, it's all about cutting off all the extra noise. And sometimes the extra noise is what's causing us to be stressed. So it also helps with interoception. Interoception could be good depending on what's causing that stress. If it's like a deep memory that's traumatizing you, you may not want to dive deep into that present moment. Sometimes it just depends on the situation that you're in. But meditation, deep breathing, having intimate conversations that just allow you to be present, definitely being in nature, just getting some sunlight, whatever you can do to make yourself feel connected, feel grounded, feel present. I suggest those are some short term stress management techniques, along with making sure that you're sleeping, eating right, and hydrated. How does chronic stress impact physical health? So, of course, stress, like I said, is all about the influx of these release of these biochemicals. But what these biochemicals can do is, of course, raise your blood pressure because they're constantly in supply. It can make your blood thicker because you have all these chemicals running through your bloodstream. It can also make you have inflammation, make your blood be overly dilated when it doesn't need to be, cause your walls to become damaged, cause the buildup of plaque. It can activate your immune system, and your immune cells will literally gobble up and eat itself. And that's how long-term stress can, for example, lead to cardiac arrest, heart attacks, and strokes, weight gain as well, because not only because of it'll basically damage your metabolic health, which means that your cells aren't able to produce energy and burn energy efficiently because of due to this inflammation, as well as the inflammation literally causes swelling of these tissues and of these blood vessels. And all of this could relate to weight gain as well when it comes to physical health. Um, so, yeah, how can relaxation techniques? So, like I said, relaxation techniques in terms of stress management can help you feel more present, feel more grounding because of how they interact with your parasympathetic nervous system, and also how it then in trying to relax your body, it can help your blood pressure to be more baseline, and can help other aspects of your body to do what they need to do. um, what role does diet play in managing stress? So diet is pivotal in health. Besides sleep, diet is definitely second behind sleep um, when it comes to overall health, but in particularly with stress. Eating foods that has high amounts of sugar, or eating foods that have all these added chemicals or dyes or extra preservatives or extra antibodies. You don't want to eat food that can cause inflammation, because inflammation in returns releases all these chemicals and activates your immune system. So you want to try to stick to foods that are not processed to a high level. Try to eat as much fresh foods as possible. Get as much colors of the rainbow as you can. Eat a lot of foods that make you feel happy afterwards. Like if you're eating food and it makes you have congested afterwards, or make you bloated afterwards, or make you hyperactive afterwards, or make you angry afterwards, or make you sad afterwards, you want to just be the scientist of your life and avoid those foods as much as possible. How can one balance work and personal life to minimize stress? Well, um, just to know that life will never have perfect balance, especially as you are an adult. You may have children, you may have careers, you may be studying at the same time, you may be an entrepreneur, you may just have things in life, and then the location side of things, like who's around you, your environment, the country, the laws of that land you're living in, the wars, just bad, negative news. All of that thing can help with your stress. But if you're talking about a time management perspective, there are things you can do, like just make sure you use your schedule and calendar. You set firm and solid boundaries. So hey, like if you may do things that you love and that can take care of you, of course. But of course, if you can't, just find like, I may not like where I'm at right now. I may not like where I am later on in my life. But like, how can I find meaning in the work I do? How can I find love in the place that I'm at or the people that I work with? You have to find some positive outlook and meaning in what you do, whatever that looks like. But of course, no matter if you like it or don't, you still need to have a time where, like, you know what, I'm not working. Like, I'm either enjoying solitude and also enjoying, whether it's friends, family, your partner, people in the community, or all of the above is probably even more the optimal route to go. But making sure that your relationship to self, your social life, as well as your work life, you all make time for all of it. Now, there are going to be times when like work is a priority, especially if you're a driven individual or entrepreneur or a person with a certain level of responsibilities or a high position. You're going to have times when work feels like it takes 80% of your week, 70% of your week. You barely have time for yourself, or you barely have time to go out and do fun things with your partner or with your family or with your friends, or to travel, and so many other complex factors involved. But just finding firm boundaries, having firm deadlines, having things in the calendar, and making things a priority based on the demand of that particular thing in that moment of your life, I think is very pivotal in our overall health and reducing and managing stress.